Matt Gaetz appears to be getting a pass from the Department of Justice. Matt Gaetz was suspected of trafficking a teenager, an underage person, for sex. And his pal, Joel Greenberg, is in prison for that. But much like with Michael Cohen and Donald Trump, the more powerful politician, the powerful politician in that pair, is getting a pass. We don't know why, because the DOJ has not told us why. I'm anticipating at some point a press release from them announcing it. This news is coming, however, from Gaetz's office. So again, it's coming from Gaetz, not the DOJ. It's technically possible that the investigation is still on, but it's been floundering, and we should have seen action already if they were going to go ahead with it. Let's have a look at this article from the AP. Representative Matt Gaetz, a Republican known for his strong support of former President Trump and membership in the arch-conservative Freedom Caucus, freedom being a hell of a word to use for what they stand for, in the House, said Wednesday that the Justice Department has ended a sex trafficking case with no charges against him, despite the fact, and look at me, Matt Gaetz and your lawyers, that he did it. I welcome a lawsuit. I would love a lawsuit. Please do. See if that's libelous. You engage in sex trafficking, Matt Gaetz. The lawmaker, who represents much of the Florida Panhandle, issued a statement through his congressional office that the long-running investigation was over. Gaetz had insisted throughout that he was innocent of any wrongdoing, even though his pal, Joel Greenberg, is in prison for it. The Department of Justice has confirmed to Congressman Gaetz's attorneys that their investigation has concluded and that he will not be charged with any crimes, the statement said. Of course, our brave Justice Department declined to comment. Federal prosecutors were investigating, before they got cold feet, whether Gaetz and one-time political ally Joel Greenberg paid underage girls and escorts. Child prostitution is what he was under investigation for, or offered them gifts in exchange for sex, according to two people familiar with the case. Greenberg, a fellow Republican who served as the tax collector in Florida's Seminole County, admitted as part of a plea deal with prosecutors that he paid women and an underage girl to have sex with him and other men. This is Matt Gaetz's longtime friend. Matt Gaetz, well known for being scum. The men were not identified in court documents when he pleaded guilty. Before that, however, the Justice Department seemed real interested in Gaetz. Greenberg was sentenced in late 2022 to 11 years in federal prison for a variety of crimes. Federal investigators were looking into a trip that Gaetz took to the Bahamas with a group of women and Jason Porzolo, a hand surgeon and Gaetz' campaign donor, and whether the women were paid or received gifts to have sex with the men, said a person familiar with the matter. David Haas, a lawyer for Porzolo, said in a statement Wednesday that he received a similar notification from the Justice Department about the investigation being closed. Wouldn't dream of putting a rich man in prison. Prosecutors had also been investigating whether Gaetz and his associates tried to secure government jobs for some of the women, the people said. Prosecutors were scrutinizing Gaetz's connection to the medical marijuana sector, including whether his associates sought to influence legislation Gaetz sponsored, of course. The House Ethics Committee in 2021 announced an investigation into Gaetz. The opening of that bipartisan inquiry was one of the first official indications that Gaetz's party leaders were willing to scrutinize his actions, but not, of course, not the Department of Justice. They would only scrutinize his actions if absolutely forced to. And even then, no promise that they will hold a Republican accountable for anything. I just talked about this with the True North folks. It's the same thing in Canada. The conservatives are much less likely to be prosecuted. This needs to stop. I'll be real with you. I don't foresee a situation where the Justice Department is forced to act. That said, we must, for the sake of these women, for the sake of decency in the country, be loud about this. There's a link in the description. Contact the Justice Department. Call them clowns, because that's what they are. Call them pawns, because that's what they are. Let loose. Don't make any threats. Don't say anything illegal. But chew them out, because they deserve it. The Justice Department has failed. Utterly failed. I have no confidence that they completed a thorough investigation of Gaetz. I have no confidence that they made a genuine effort to build a case against the man, because there's mountains of evidence against him, and they followed the playbook. There was silence for a few months, and now Gaetz saying he's off scot-free. An utter embarrassment. This will be yet another one of the sins that goes unanswered, and as a result is a shame upon the generation of people alive on earth right now. Our grandchildren will be embarrassed by the fact that these injustices were allowed to occur on our watch. We might not have the badge, but we are collectively those responsible for what happens here and now in this generation. And it's simply unconscionable to me that Matt Gaetz would be allowed to get away with this. I do not believe that he didn't do it. I do not believe that it was ever seriously investigated. And if it was, let them come out and explain it. Because, goddamn, there's a hell of a lot of evidence pointing towards the man's guilt. They ought to explain why he was not guilty in their estimation, why they didn't think they could build a case. Because it could simply be that they're too incompetent to hold the job anymore. Regardless, I encourage you, if you are as offended by this as I am, I encourage you to write the Department of Justice and let them know, at the very least, so that they know how closely they are being watched these days, that we are no longer in the days when you can simply give a pass to powerful people and trust that the American people will ignore it. Don't ignore it.